Welcome into Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast for this week, where we recap some of the top interviews and guests you heard on Eye on Northeast Kansas, the TV show. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. Our show comes to you live Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time from our studios in Topeka, Kansas, the capital of the great state of Kansas. You can also catch it streaming live on WIBW.com. We welcomed some of our local representatives into the studio this week, and we talked about some great events as well. First up, Senator Roger Marshall, our Kansas senator, was part of an effort this week. He gathered the entire federal delegation together, along with some various community partners from around the state, to raise awareness of fentanyl. Monday, August 21st, was Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day nationwide. Senator Marshall and these partners, as part of this campaign, posted to social media all week long, sharing the dangers associated with fentanyl and just how prevalent it's become. In fact, a recent report for the Midwest showed that fentanyl, for the first time ever, was deemed the greatest drug threat to the Midwest region by law enforcement partners who were involved in this activity. Senator Marshall talked why he felt this is perfect timing to raise awareness of the problem.
Every day we lose a Kansan from fentanyl poisoning. That one pill of fentanyl can kill a person. So as I've heard that story repeat itself over and over again, I said, when the kids are going back to school this year, let's launch a fentanyl awareness campaign. So we're trying to get that message out to every corner of the state. The entire Kansas federal delegation is helping us. We have over 100 organizations across the state, everything from health departments to the KBI, doctor's offices, nurse's office, everyone getting this word out that one pill can kill.
A lot of people have been doing that, Senator, on their own here and there. A lot of those. What does it say that everybody got together on this? Federal delegation members, both sides of the aisle involved here, and then all of the partners that you talked about, law enforcement, educational institutions, public, local governments. What does it say that everybody jumped on board when you said, hey, I want to do this?
Well, I think that, first of all, fentanyl poisoning is the #1 killer of young adults across America. So this is now impacting every community. And again, I think this moment when our youth are going back to college, back to high school, in a state, in a situation, this is not unique to Kansas, but it is easier to purchase 5 fentanyl tablets online for less than $5. It's easier to get fentanyl than it is a slice of pizza right now. So I think that everyone across the state, it feels the enormity of the problem, and it's touching every community. So when we have this opportunity to get all our voices together, we're so much better when we work together. We take 2 + 2 and make 8 out of it.
When you mentioned the timing of this, what is it about this back to school time, and particularly if you're looking for students maybe moving to a new building in terms of middle school to high school, and then college students, particularly freshmen, arriving, getting some independence for the first time? Well,
Melissa, once upon a time, you and I were going back to school as well, and I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, but when I went back to K-State for that after the end of summer, it was a time of, I'm going to say, experimentation, of being challenged. And, as easy as it was for someone like us to get a beer, even though we were underage, it's easier for kids to get fentanyl. The difference is that this one pill can kill. So I think as kids go back to school, I think they're especially vulnerable. And I think that there's also an opportunity for teachers and coaches and parents to kind of seize the moment and say, okay, wait a second. As our kids are going back to school, we want to make sure they're able to finish it. And fentanyl doesn't care who you are, where you are, what your last name is, what your parents do. Nobody is immune from this problem.
That ease of access is something that you're attacking beyond this awareness campaign, but also with some legislation. What is the bill, and what is the status of that bill?
Yeah, so the Cooper Davis bill is named for a wonderful young man who lost his life to fentanyl. He and his friends ordered 2 fentanyl tablets through Snapchat. Cooper Davis took half of one tablet and died. So what our legislation does is force social media to proactively cooperate with police, with law enforcement when they see something like that going online. It passed overwhelmingly out of committee. This is a bipartisan bill. Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois, the Democrat whip, is co-sponsoring the bill. So we hope that we can get that to the floor. We hope the House is able to do something with it and get it to the president's desk.
There are so many parallel issues to fentanyl, Senator, and especially with your medical background, if you can comment on this. One thing other folks have told me on this issue, and especially as it pertains to Narcan, is why this is something that crosses all age spectrums. It's not just the illicit or recreational use of fentanyl. It's people who perhaps are taxed with their medical bills. They've been prescribed an opioid or some other prescription. They look for a cheaper way to get it, and lo and behold, they end up with something laced with fentanyl. So how does this issue cross all of those dynamics. I threw in a lot of things there.
Yeah, Melissa. Well, I think the challenge is many of these acts are accidental poisoning where somebody is ordering, say, a Xanax tablet or a Percocet tablet. They're even lacing marijuana with the fentanyl as well. So certainly as we come out of we're starting to come out of this opioid crisis, this fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than opioids. So if a person that's addicted to opioids, if they're used to taking 10 Percocet tablets to get high, so to speak, if they just take 1/2 of one of these tablets, it'll probably kill them as well. So you're right, it does cross all those barriers.
And they don't know it's there.
Oftentimes they don't know what's there, that the cartel, unfortunately, is alive and well across the state of Kansas, and they print their own pills. So they print pills that look like Percocet tablets, but for whatever reason, they're lacing them with fentanyl.
Senator, appreciate you taking the time and the awareness campaign all week long. Thank you.
You bet. Hashtag one pill can kill. I just appreciate all your listeners getting online, do something, go to marshall.senate.gov, and if they can, write a post themselves and hashtag one pill can kill.
A lot of groups were posting about the issue this week, and it is certainly something we will be continuing to follow in our newsroom. Another top of mind issue for the city of Topeka and Shawnee County is the issue of homelessness. Just what can we do to assist those people who are homeless? And also, how do we address some of the health and safety concerns that have been raised around the area? Maybe not as easy as it sounds. Topeka Mayor Mike Padilla stopped in to offer some perspective. And we appreciate you being here, Mayor. What do you feel is it? Because we've had a population of unsheltered and homeless people in Topeka, probably always. What is it about this moment in time that has made this such a concern?
Well, I think you can look across the country and see that it is a moment in time, as you say, for all of us. And I think it gets back to economics. With inflation, there are a lot of people that were just living from paycheck to paycheck. And you just inch that responsibility up a little bit more and they're out and they don't know where to turn. So all of the cities that are affected by this, and it's not even just big urban cities, it's rural communities as well. There is a uptick not only in that, but surprisingly, and I don't know that many people have talked about this, it's an aging process too. There are more and more, they call it now the graying of the homeless. There are more and more seniors that are homeless now because they're running out of funds. They've spent all what they thought were enough savings to get them through their golden years. And now they're in a position where they have to try and find homes that they can afford, and not finding them, they're then turned to the homeless situation, and they grow the population as well. We've seen that here in Topeka.
Which brings a lot of extra issues. There have been some specific concerns surrounding health and safety that have come up. Shawnee County is revisiting some resolutions specific to a concern about dogs running at large along trails, specific to what they can and can't regulate with camping. And that's a discussion that's come up among Topeka's city governing body as well. How difficult is it to craft something that balances all of those concerns that surround camping? Because camping can refer to people who are sleeping outdoors and need a place to do so. What can we and can't, I guess the good place to start here is, what can we and can't we regulate?
Well, we have to be cautious because there are laws in place already that prohibit us from making, being homeless and poor a criminal act.
You can't say no one can sleep outside.
That's right. It just doesn't happen. Last night's discussion, if you weren't able to look into it, even brought up the possibility that you would just ban camping everywhere. Well, when you do that, believe it or not, it extends into your private property. You couldn't put a camp up or a tent up in your backyard. Now, we don't want that to happen. So you have to be cautious on how you craft any ordinance that would restrict some places where you can put up a temporary tent. And I think that was where the discussion went last night. It's not something that's going to be permanent. We have to look at it so that it is a temporary situation. People are given that opportunity to maybe get themselves squared away, but then they have to move. And the problem then is, where do they move? And that discussion went on again last night about, well, maybe we establish a permanent location for anybody who wants to live in a tent or be in sheltered, because there are some who prefer that. We've actually tried to get them to move out of them, but they want to be independent and live that way. The problem with that is then you concentrate that whole population in one area, and then you have to make sure that they're safe there as well. So that is a complication that sometimes it doesn't come to mind when you're talking about maybe establishing tiny home locations and the like that, because then who monitors all the population there? Who makes sure they're safe, gets the health care they need? And they're, they can be aggressive when you put people in a tight situation. So that's something we have to consider as well.
A lot of talk has surrounded a low barrier shelter. It's kind of a controversial idea. The Topeka Rescue Mission provides shelter. They do have some rules, though, for folks who are coming in, some things that can and cannot be done. There are some safety reasons why they do that. And does that then extend to what some of the concerns are about a low barrier shelter? If you let anybody in, how do you make sure everybody is safe? And you kind of spoke a little bit to those issues. Are we thinking about a low barrier shelter option?
No, there has been a lot of conversation about a low barrier shelter. In fact, myself and others went on a trip out of state to Colorado to look at 2 different versions of low barrier shelters. Neither of those versions, in my opinion, would fit Topeka's situation, because they operated very differently. Even though they both called themselves low barriers, they still operated very differently. Here in Topeka, I think it would be difficult to put a low barrier location into where it currently is recognized as the area around the Topeka Rescue Mission, because it would again concentrate a population of unsheltered. And again, it's the safety and health concerns that we would increase by putting a low barrier shelter in place. So although it's been talked about, I don't know that it'll ever happen in the city of Topeka.
Obviously, we just scratched the surface of what is a very complicated issue. We'll continue these discussions. I know it's also going to come up during budget talks as we decide whether or not to put money in the city budget to go toward the problem and how that money would be spent. Mayor Padilla, I appreciate you being here to talk a little bit about some of those other things that surround the discussion and what you can and can't do. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation. Be glad to come back and put more detail to it whenever you have time.
Thank you so much. And there are a lot of talks. The City Council, as you heard, has been discussing what changes they might put in place. Shawnee County Commission approved a couple things this week that had to do with a leash law on county property, as well as some of those camping issues on county property as well. But very narrow, very targeted in terms of what they can and cannot do on that realm. The Greater Topeka Partnership has an event coming up to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also offer some information to folks in the business and organizational setting on how they can perhaps promote and incorporate those aspects more regularly. We heard from Glenda Washington with GTP, as well as Lonnie Walker Jr., who works with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas, about the event. Welcome. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us.
How many years is this, Glenda, that you've done
this is our third year. Third year. We started off just with a concept. We ended up in COVID.
Yeah. That happens to a lot
Did
of
it
things.
virtually. Did it in person last year and in person this year.
So second year in person. What is the theme for this year?
The theme this year is changing mindsets, shifting cultures.
And what does that mean? How do you hope to embody that theme?
I think for us, you know, we're hearing a lot of things about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what it is and what it isn't. And so we want to help individuals understand what it really should be. And some of that is helping to change mindsets. And once those mindsets are changed, that will help to shift the cultures within the organizations that we're aiming to inspire.
What do you think, Glenda, about what it means to have diversity and equity in a workplace? What does it mean? Is it simply like we have this many people representing this background, this many people of this ethnicity? It's more than that.
It's more than that. The numbers are great. You know, you talk about numbers all the time. But it also gives us an insight into what that individual is experiencing, gives us an idea of how to change the environment so that everybody's comfortable, everybody's participating in the growth of the organization and not feeling, you know, intimidated by any means.
It's one thing to bring people in the door. It's another thing to truly bring them to the table.
Making them feel comfortable.
Well, what sorts of things are going to happen at the summit to achieve that goal and to get people to think beyond simply the surface numbers?
No, wonderful. We have a number of things planned. We have 2 dynamic keynote speakers, and when I say dynamic, I truly mean that they are internationally known DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioners, specifically Dr. Shirley Davis, hailing from Tampa, Florida, and then Miguel Joey Aviles, hailing from Puerto Rico. They are internationally known. As a matter of fact, they just spoke at the National SHRM, or Society for Human Resources Management Conference in Vegas a couple of months ago. So we're bringing in heavy hitters, as well as a number of breakout sessions that we'll be hosting as well.
That's what I was going to ask about. It's not just about listening. You want people to speak and share. How is that going to be part of the day?
Well, actually, we have a number of ways. We have a couple of panel sessions that they're going to be participating in. And so they get an opportunity to ask questions, to interact with the speakers and the individuals on the panel. And then we're having a town hall, which is unusual. We're having a town hall that gives everybody the opportunity to take a look at themselves, ask whatever question that they're kind of hem-hawing about, and get some comfort on, everybody's dealing with the same thing. We're all dealing with it. Let's have a discussion on it. So it'll be an open floor, open discussion.
And what do you hope happens after the summit?
For us, like we said with the theme, we want mindsets to be changed so that we can shift cultures, not only in our organizations that are here locally and in the region, but then also in our communities as well. I know that at the heart of our city's strategic plan, Momentum 2022 through 2027, is equity. And so we want to do our part to help advance that as well as diversity, inclusion, and belonging.
Well, it is for everyone. And so if you'd like to go to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit, sponsored by the Greater Topeka Partnership, Changing Mindsets, Shifting Cultures is the theme. As you heard, it's 9 to 3, Thursday, August 31st at Prairie Band Casino and Resort. You can go to the GTP website, topekapartnership.com/diversity-equity-inclusion-summit. I've got a link, and I will have that link on WIBW.com as well, in case you're like, that was a lot of words and a lot of dashes. We will have that there. $79, well worth it to really address the issue. Lonnie, Glenda, thank you so very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you
guys
for having
being
us,
here.
Melissa.
You bet.
The fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion certainly will be top of mind on Monday, August 28th. If you aren't aware, that marks 60 years since the March on Washington, and that is the place where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. Topeka has an event planned to commemorate the occasion. Mike Bell told me why that event was so important and deserves to be remembered.
Different people got together in different groups, led primarily and most notably by the NAACP, to organize a march and an occasion that would highlight what was being sought, again, jobs and freedom. And sometimes the jobs part is forgotten about that march, and it was important as well, in addition to the messages regarding freedom. So 250,000 people showed up at our National Mall, which at that point was one of the largest activities attendance-wise, as far as people saying we need to change.
And of course, one of the most iconic messages to come out of that day was the I Have a Dream speech. How did that really resonate with people of all races and backgrounds?
Well, I think that was the real appeal of it, is that it did. Martin Luther King Jr. was an incredibly charismatic person, and he was able to go over whatever hurdles people thought there were regarding race and all of those other things that divided us, and to find a message that appealed to everyone about unity, about brotherhood and sisterhood, and all of those things that bring us together, to start making judgments about people not based on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character.
Why do you feel this is an event that should be commemorated in Topeka 60 years later?
We wanted to commemorate it based on what it meant then, and just as importantly, what it means now and what it could mean moving forward. And so we have an event planned at 6:30 p.m. on the anniversary date, August 28th. It'll be at New Mount Zion Church at 2801 Southeast Indiana. It'll be, of course, there'll be in-person attendance, and then also there will be, it'll be live streamed, and there's information coming out about that, so that we can mark as a nation and more intimately as a city where we were, where we're at, and where we're headed.
Your keynote speaker is Kevin Wilmot. What does he mean to the celebration, and what will he bring to the event?
A tremendous amount. A nationally recognized Academy Award-winning filmmaker right here from this area. I think he was born in Junction City, lives in Lawrence, is a professor of film at KU. So he brings Kansas sensibilities to a discussion that has national and international implications.
What do you hope people walk away from this event with Monday?
I hope, and you know, that's what I hope, is I hope that people understand that even though it's been 60 years and a number of the issues that were present then are still present today, that I hope that we understand that we can continue to work on those things. Every step forward that we make is a positive.
New Mount Zion Baptist Church in Topeka will host that commemorative event Monday evening, August 28th. They hope to see a lot of people there. We also hope to see a lot of people turn the page on the new chapter of the Kansas Book Festival. It is returning to the Washburn University campus. We heard from Tim Bascom and Eric McHenry about the event. Sum up the festival in a nutshell. What is the Kansas Book Festival?
Yeah, if people come, they're going to get a number of things. One is there are these authors who speak in pairs about a topic that they have in common. For instance, you might have two of them, in this case, talking about a tough subject, suicide, the rise of it in our culture, in books that have gotten quite a bit of attention recently that both deal with that. You get food trucks, you get live music on a stage, there's a children's tent, and so kids can go in and they can paint their own bookmark. They get to meet Curious George, who's going to be visiting on this occasion. Yeah. And yeah, it's just a fun time to celebrate books. Also, there's 30 exhibitors who are in tents out on the campus of Washburn University.
How do you choose the books that are involved?
Well, one of the key things is we are proud of the legacy of Kansas authors, people here in this region who are producing really remarkable work. And we're surprised how many there are. So we're actually having to turn people away. But we're looking for authors who have a new book that's just come out. It could be in any one of the genres that is somehow tied to Kansas. Either they lived here and now are elsewhere, or they live here now, or they're writing about something that's important to our state.
All very good. So Eric, you are an author.
I am.
What have you written?
I've written a few books of poetry, one book of children's poetry, and a couple of others, Pot Scrubber Lullabies and Odd Evening. I'm sure everyone has heard of them.
I love that. So, yeah. Pot Scrubber Lullabies. I love it. So what is your role going to be in the festival this year?
Well, I'm on the festival board, so I help with the selection of authors and identification of authors, but specifically this year I'm going to be moderating a panel that's going to be bringing in a couple of authors with Kansas connections, both of whom are exploring kind of a similar theme, feeling like a stranger in your own home. One of them is a poet whose poems deal with his upbringing both in Berkeley, California and on a farm in south central Kansas, and having one Mennonite parent and one Jewish parent, and both of his parents being labor lawyers, and so he's negotiated a lot of different cultures and often felt a little dislocated. And then there's another poet who's felt a little estranged from his family for complex reasons. And so we're going to be talking about how poetry gives them a way of exploring those challenging issues.
I was going to say, when you do these panel discussions, do they just simply read their poetry? Is that part of it, or is it more getting the story behind the story?
It's
in the words?
really much more of a conversation. In this case, they'll read a few poems to sort of illustrate some issues that are arising in the conversation, but it's really a dialogue with me as a moderator and a dialogue with the people who come and attend. We always open the floor to questions after we've been talking for a while, and then people can ask things that they're curious about, and it's a good way for them to engage with the authors as well.
I'll tell you what, your book festival is coming at a little bit of a mini renaissance, as it were, for reading in Kansas with Dolly Parton, just coming here to promote the Imagination Library. Why do you find this festival, Tim, is something that's good for all ages? Because you specifically have the children's activities.
Right. Well, we're trying to encourage kind of like a whole culture of reading, because we believe reading is very tied to ideas, and as humans we need to be thinking about what's important in our lives, and we also like to be entertained. So yeah, we've got authors like Candace Millard, who's going to be coming and talking about the history of the epic search for the source of the Nile, and she's a New York Times bestseller. And people who are into nonfiction and history will get a kick out of that. But if you've got kids coming in, they're going to get to talk about girl go-getters in middle grade novels, or learn about books that are for first readers as well.
It's something truly for everyone. And it's taking place Saturday, September 16th, all day long at the Washburn University campus, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the best part, of course, is it's free.
Exactly.
We like that. Tim, Eric, thank you both so much for being here. We look forward to the next chapter of the Kansas Book Festival.
Thanks.
Mark your calendar for that, and also put down on your calendar the next big concert that is coming to the Historic Jayhawk Theatre in downtown Topeka. The theater is going country. Jeff Carson told us a little bit about that, and he also treated us to an update on just what is going on with the big renovation plans for that theater.
Ian Flanagan, who is he, and how did you end up bringing him to town?
He was a voice contestant, and what we found when we're programming the theater is that it's really exciting for a fan base like The Voice to see those performers. And so when we had a chance to bring Ian here, we listened to his demos, and it was incredible. We had an easy decision to make.
What is it like for you to bring artists into that space? And what have you found the feedback from them is and what they get out of it?
That's a great question. You know, Billy Bob Thornton was probably the first notable thing that we did at the theater under my
I got to interview him. It was so fun.
Yeah. And, you know, he loved it. He said, I'll come back.
Nice.
And same with KT Tunstall. And so they love the charm. They can feel the soul of the theater when they come in. And so, you know, musicians are very sensitive people. They're very in tune with stuff. And when they walk in, they look around the place and they go, wow, this is great. This is going to be amazing.
Going to be amazing. And that's what's interesting to me, Jeff, is how did you make that decision to... Some people would say, well, we have to have things renovated before we can have any events here.
Yeah, right.
It's almost like this extended bare bones tour that is going on
with
the Historic Jayhawk Theatre.
But
why did you make that decision to bring folks in before you even get started on the bulk of the work?
Yeah. You know, the best asset we have is the theater. So to be able to clean it up enough to get it so that it's not a complete disaster inside, we had to work and clean up stuff and modify a few things, make it safe, get some water running and that sort of thing. So we got a lot of grants, we made improvements along the way, and then we started realizing that having these awareness events does a couple things for us. It helps us train ourselves on how to run a theater, and we can anticipate problems and ticketing and all that stuff. But number two, it gives us that awareness in the community that like, oh, I see what it could be. And so it's worked out pretty well, and I think that it also has helped us put us on a business footing that makes the state of Kansas Commerce Department take notice. And so when we applied for the Sprint grant funding, we worked very hard to make sure that we were very credible and trustworthy kind of a destination for $5 million.
And that's a $5 million grant. So when does the ball get rolling? When might we see some of that work in earnest on the actual theater itself start?
Things are happening very, very quickly. And what we expect is that next year we'll have to stop having events and really turn into a phase one of our construction.
How long do you think phase 1 will take?
We are required by the terms of the grant to spend the money by the end of 2025, so we have to get started, and we'll have to have it finished by then. And of course we have other needs beyond that, but this will help us get a good start.
And so come during the Ian Flanagan concert, because do you ever find yourself like kind of going into a dream sequence, like where the background goes from the state that it's in to all of a sudden you find yourself with the power of music transformed and it kind of changes around you?
Yeah, you forget about the current state of it when you hear beautiful music being played.
Absolutely. Not that you go into like fantasy sequences in the middle of a concert.
Oh, I always do. Yeah. I'm an artist.
If you'd like to see Ian Flanagan in concert, the event is coming up September 20. Gosh, September already?
I know.
Goodness gracious. September 23rd, 7 o'clock is the concert time. Jayhawktheatre.org is where you can go to get those tickets. How much are tickets for Ian Flanagan?
I think they start at 25 and they go to 45.
Not bad at all. Jeff, thank you so very much. And everyone can help welcome Ian to town and share in the vision. You can be transported to what the grandeur will be. We know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
We cannot wait to see it once it's done. It is going to be beautiful indeed. Thank you for being with us for Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast this week. If you'd like to see the video from these segments and from all of the guests who make their way through our studio, we post them for you on WIBW.com. You can also find them on my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner, and be sure to go to our WIBW 13 News YouTube channel where you will find a dedicated stream to all of our Eye on Northeast Kansas segments. Be sure to click subscribe while you're there. It's been a great week. Hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you on the Red Couch.